So if there is anybody from the public who wants to ask questions, please let us know who you are addressing the question to.
Good evening. My name is Nina Anderson, and my question is actually for the farmer of the panel. Thank you for being here. So I'll give you a little bit of my background. My great-grandparents were homesteaders. My great-grandmother gave birth to 10 kids so she could have enough to farm. My grandfather was 12 years old when he became a sheep farmer up in Routt County, and that was how they made it through the Depression. My cousin is now a range rider up in Hotchkiss, not because it's a winning proposition for wages, but because that's the lifestyle that he chose, and his family appreciates that. He goes to work on Sunday evening and he comes home on Saturday evening, and they don't see him the rest of the week, and that is pretty much 52 weeks out of the year. So thank you for being here. I worry about the sustainability of the life that you and I have come to love. I worry because we talk about suicide rates in Colorado at 22.8 per 100,000, but suicide rate of farmers at 43.7 per 100,000. I worry about the sustainability and the profitability for you and your family. How do you feel about the sustainability, and do you think that your children will continue to be the farmers in Western Colorado?
I'm sorry. I love what I do. I love working with my labor. I do things different than my dad did, who was home a lot less. I've got 4 kids, 10-week-old, 2.5, 3.5, and a 6-year-old, 6.5. I don't spend as much time out of the house as my dad did. I'm very passionate, and I have a guilty conscience often because I don't put the hours in on the farm. I have a guilty conscience because I'm not sure that I am doing the right thing for my labor, for the consumer. This year we had the worm issues with the corn. Other years it's been markets. Seems more often than not it's a miss rather than a hit. Got trouble with my onions this year. I don't plan on committing suicide at all. That's not crossed my mind. But I find it harder and harder every day to want to keep doing this. I feel like a punching bag by the consumer, by the public. I'm a bad guy for bringing labor from Mexico. I'm a bad guy for keeping the worms out of the corn, or using fertilizer, or not being local. And during this Senate Bill 2187, there was a lot of discussion about a way of life, something that's different. And so a city person who works 35, 40 hours a week and, works from home on a computer, or, they could look at the life that we live on the farm and say, oh, that's abhorrent and that they're abused, and the poor farm worker, which might include me, not just my H-2A labor. I put in long hours. So I don't know. The people have to eat. So that food production part of agriculture is kind of, it has to be sustainable one way or the other. I don't know who's going to do it. There are fewer and fewer, and it's becoming more kind of corporate and more, but maybe that's a good thing. I always have to recognize that even though it may hurt me, and I may not like it, it may be the right thing. But yeah, thanks for the kind thoughts as part of your question, and recognition that what I'm doing is valuable and important, and I'm not, maybe not a terrible guy.
If I may ask a question quickly, Phil Weiser was here a couple weeks ago. I don't know if anybody in our audience was there for his presentation. And one of the things he was concerned about was the consolidation of what you were describing as up the food chain, between Safeway and Kroger. That would probably be harmful for you, it would be harmful for the consumer. I'd be interested in hearing, David, what your opinion is about that, and ways that the consumers could, and even the workers that Derek's talking about, could come together and look into that.
When Phil Weiser was here, I spoke with him, and he asked me what my thoughts were. And what I'm good at, no, probably not good at, what I try and be good at are how plants grow, and how to build soils, and how to use all the tools that I've got effectively and conscientiously. So I'm not real sure how to answer the question of whether the Kroger-Safeway merger is good or bad. If that merger were to bring good quality produce to consumers at a lower price point, from a consumer's perspective, you would say that was a good thing. If that produce were mine, I would say that was a good thing. So that's selfishly right from my perspective. But if that merger means there's more pressure on me to lower my prices, which puts pressure on me to cut corners or treat workers, not necessarily with less respect or dignity, but with lower wages or cutting corners, perhaps a bad thing. And so what outcome would come of the merger? I dreamed that maybe Kroger, who is not signed on, or Safeway to the Fair Food Program, maybe as part of that merger, there would be pressure on them to join. And maybe that would be a benefit to have a large, the largest grocer in the U.S. be part of the Fair Food Program. So a lot of fear for me, obviously, to have them consolidate and have that downward pressure on my margins and already suffering. But I do see that there could be some good things that potentially could happen as well.
Hi, thank you so much for your information. It's a passion that is close to my heart. I have two daughters, and they went to a school that focused on agriculture and where our food comes from for their educational indoctrination, if you will. I'm very concerned about the suicide rates, and for me, hearing that you give the farmers a voice is very important. but also for someone who's interested in ending modern slavery. I'm also interested in your opinion on trauma-informed spaces and safeguarding in your workplace. So while you're listening to your workers, are there measures put in place for safeguarding and trauma-informed spaces to assist those workers who have encountered situations that are beyond what we've experienced on a daily basis? You had mentioned the gun situation a number of times. I myself have faced that. So I'm curious to know, in addition to what you're already doing, which is great, how do we help move that trauma-informed space and that safeguarding so that suicide issue is not prevalent or continuing to rise? Thank you.
Who's the question directed to?
Either of any of them.
That's not a strong point for me. The year before last, we had an issue. One of my H2A workers, we don't know the full story, but we had a car accident. 4 workers were in a car, 3 were killed, 1 was paralyzed. This Colorado State Patrol in their investigation called it a suicide homicide. The driver of the vehicle, by all they could tell, drove straight into a gravel truck. So another one of those things to think about that makes me want to quit. But we talk now as part of our meetings with labor, about that aspect of, right, where we want people to feel that they can talk about what is going on in their workplace, whether that's, I didn't know it at the time, but this person had been having, I'm not a psychiatrist or real informed on how to talk about these things, so forgive me, but schizophrenic maybe, they had some medication from their doctor in Mexico, and they were taking it and they weren't, and that was something that became evident, that we needed to have some space, some discussion to make sure that as a group of friends, comrades, work associates, it was appropriate for us to talk about things that may not be work related, but definitely not my strong. Have I done enough? Should I do more? What resources are there? That's probably a weak point, and also, as a farmer support group, farmer peer-to-peer, I definitely, in the past year, less than a year even, have had my eyes open to the fact that the high suicide rate among farmers, and I ask my farmer friends, how you doing? Not how are you doing, and I don't care, but no, how are you doing? Because we do, I think, have it's a tough job, a lot of risk, a lot of pressure, and we've got a lot of things stacked against us. And so I try and provide that space, even with the people I associate with, farmers. No, you said you're fine, but I don't believe you. Yeah, I'm depressed. Yeah, things are rough. Hey, hang in there. I think it's the farmer's motto is, next year we're going to do it better. It's going to be better. Keep that optimism, that hope.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what we can do as consumers, to push the fair food program. It seems like if consumers are more educated in programs like this, that they're maybe more widely publicized, that some subset of consumers would probably be really interested in trying to see this program expanded and adopted by the Krogers and the Safeways of the world. Who do we talk to? I mean, what do we do?
It's a tough situation, and Derek and I, about a year ago, as we were talking, I have these philosophical conversations with myself and with others often, and stop me as soon as you need to. But how our system works, it's very hard, right, for a consumer to know everything, or all of the consumers to know everything, right? I know a lot about farming, don't know anything about computers, etc. So it's hard to affect change, and there are bad actors out there to give us stories that help push us in a certain direction. But the Fair Food Program, as great as I think it is, and as effective as it can be, what is fair food? So in the fair food way of thinking, we're going to have let's say Whole Foods, who pays a premium to a grower to pass on to a worker to ensure fair treatment, to ensure fair wages, to ensure participation and have that stick to hit somebody with if they misbehave. But what we're doing in some ways is creating more expensive food that an elite, let's say Whole Foods, who's a member of Fair Food Program. So I could say to you, you know what you could do? You could go buy your food at Whole Foods, where it's overpriced, where yes, they're a fair food program, but not everybody can afford it, and likely the margin is you're just giving more money to a big, rich corporation. So there's, from my perspective as a farmer, it's very hard to say what like some simple brushstroke thing is. Would I like Kroger to join? Yes. If Kroger joined, would they pay a premium to my workers? Yes. Would the price of my corn on the shelf now go up? Yes. Will less people be able to consume it? Probably. So the knowing, I guess simply put, knowing and putting energy into making informed decisions is the obvious way. But how can we do that across each person, knowing exactly who grew their food and where it came from? We entrust that to a Kroger or a Whole Foods to do that for us. A Safeway, we had the interesting situation here of Star Farms, and Safeway was buying from them, and now they're not. Watermelons that Derek brought up, Kroger was buying. Onions, Kroger was buying. Who do you trust to make your decisions for you? Affecting policy change, USDA pilot program, H2A, that is USDA, not DOL. So the United States Department of Agriculture is implementing a grant program for H2A employers who subscribe to a worker-driven social responsibility program to get grant funds. And it's a pilot program. So the USDA is saying, if we can push growers to participate in a fair food program and then bring the workers up to run our farms and then have all the benefits that the fair food program brings, you know, if universally, right, if everybody was in the fair food program, it would be a level playing field. The guy who's willing to cut corners wouldn't exist, and the growers who are willing to participate, and all the food in all of the outlets, whether it was Whole Foods or would all be level playing field, fair food program, and we could all go about our days. But very, very difficult to affect change.
And without wading too far into the philosophical debate, which is interesting and also very difficult to answer, I think just for starters, and what you can do right now is, if you want to learn more, you can go to fairfoodprogram.org. I really wish someone from the Coalition of Immokalee Workers were here, because they're the ones that do the campaigns. They run the campaigns against the Krogers who don't want to join, or who won't even listen, and try to get more consumer pressure on them. So you can learn more about how to engage in the campaign at the Fair Food Program, fairfoodprogram.org. Also donating to the program. We are a nonprofit. We don't take money from the growers because they have it hard enough. We don't want to be reliant on money from the buyers because that's a conflict of interest. So we get our money from grants and from donors, by and large, and so that's another way that you can engage in it. But connecting with the coalition's efforts to campaign for more fair food, pushing those buyers to join, that's the first step that I would give you. It's not my expertise, but you can find out more at fairfoodprogram.org.
Good job, Derek. Next, David.
Hi, I'm sorry. Thank you all. I know it's getting late. This question is for Ignacio. You mentioned you had dreams when you came to be a worker back in the 90s. What were your dreams and hopes before reality kind of came crashing in some way? But what were some of your hopes and dreams when you came to the U.S.? And what are some of the dreams of other H2A workers?
Bueno, cuando la primera vez que yo vine, como le dije, venía con una esperanza de volver a mi país y tener algo mejor.
So when I first came to this country, I had the hope to return to my country to something better.
Y esa fue lo que a mí me entusiasmó a venir, ¿se me entiende? Porque como le digo, ese era mi sueño y también de conocer Estados Unidos.
So that was my dream. I was excited, and that was my dream to come here to the United States.
Y se me dio la oportunidad y dije, yo voy a ir a conocer Estados Unidos y a ver cuál es la manera de trabajar y la manera de cómo, por ejemplo, cómo trabajan aquí en Estados Unidos y cómo nosotros trabajamos allá en Chile. Entonces eso fue mi anhelo de venir aquí y yo pienso que...
So my dream was to come and to know the United States. My hope was to get to know how the work is done here and also how it is done in my home country, Chile.
Yo pienso que, por ejemplo, en esos años veníamos muchos chilenos, pero muchos nos decepcionamos de la manera de trabajar aquí. Por eso ya chilenos no vienen a trabajar de borriguero, vienen puros peruanos. Y como les digo, yo he conocido peruanos, he conocido un señor aquí en Wyoming que trae señores que son de Nepal, mexicanos, y
So,
okay.
so when I first came, and others like me, we came here to know what it was to be in the United States, to get to know the United States. And we were quickly disappointed to find out what it really was like to be here. And as you probably know that at first it was a lot of people from Chile coming to do the sheep herding. And now it's more Peruvians and other countries. And now it's people from Nepal.
Entonces, por ejemplo, peruanos vienen muchos con la esperanza de ellos de mejorar, porque Perú es un país muy pobre, y entonces ellos vienen con esa mentalidad de mejorar su bienestar aquí en Estados Unidos, pero ellos, o sea que cuando uno viene, mire, cuando uno lo contratan allá, a uno nunca le explican, no le explican bien cómo trabajan aquí ellos. Entonces, cuando llega uno aquí y se encuentra con la sorpresa que, porque no le explican que va a andar solo, que va a tener a cargo 3,000 borregas y un caballo y un perro nomás, nunca le explican bien a uno.
So when they're first brought to this country, unfortunately, it's not explained to them how the work is going to be done. That they're going to be by themselves with 3,000 sheep, and just one horse, and a couple dogs.
Y eso, como le digo, esa fue mi ilusión yo de venir a ver cómo trabajan y también conocer Estados Unidos. ¿Me entienden?
So that was my disillusion coming here, to see how the work was done and to find out how it actually was being done.
We have another question.
I'm going to be really brief. It's not really a question, but maybe a slight piggyback off of the call to action. And so first of all, I'm Alicia, I'm the director of the community food bank here in town, and I want to thank you. We had Tuxedo Corn available at our food pantry this summer, and it was, Jesus was saying, by far the favorite that we were able to have, so thank you. We're able to do that through some of these really strategic grant investments from the USDA. So I think paying attention to the Farm Bill and all of the local policy that affects our food system is super important. And then I just want to put a small plug in for some local nonprofits who support H2A workers here in Mesa County. So if you're not aware, La Plaza, formerly Child and Migrant Services in Palisade, is doing some pretty incredible work. There's also Project Protect, and I think HAP does some work, and then obviously migrant education programs. So those are some really tangible ways to support workers, and we're really interested to learn more about fair food. It's great. Fingers crossed for Kroger.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I work at La Plaza, one of the nonprofits that she mentioned. So we work very closely with H2A workers and other immigrant workers that are working in agriculture. I had a question for you, Derek. Can you explain a little bit more about your program and what you think the barriers are to getting more people signed up?
So the program works fundamentally based on pressure, whether it's disincentives or incentives from the top of the supply chain, from retailers or restaurants, fast food chains. And so without that pressure, or without a carrot, a bonus, or some preference given to growers that are participating, we I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a secret. We're not an easy program to work. It's more work to be part of the federal program. It's more work. It's more money to follow all the laws to make sure you're doing everything right. So without that pressure from the top, it's just nobody's going to join. It's not going to expand. And those Kroger's or McDonald's was never going to join the program without normal people saying, you are complicit in farm worker poverty, you're complicit in modern day slavery, and here's a way you can fix it. Join the Fair Food program, and bring in enough negative pressure, negative attention on them that they eventually folded and decided to join. So really, it's a daunting task, but it's already been done many times. There's a really cool documentary called Food Chains. Last time I checked, you could only find it on YouTube, but if you maybe try to find that, it documents the struggle of the Coalition of Immokalee Workers to campaign against all those fast food chains and bring those first 9 or 10 major participating buyers into the program that really got things going in Florida. So there is hope, I think, that the template's been set, it can be done, but it really takes a lot of look.
H2A.
H2A, thank you. How is that program so separated from the Department of Labor that when it is discovered and finally brought to the attention that there's some egregious action going on, that a rancher is brought to bear for the treatment of these people, that that once the suit is brought and it's followed through on, and this rancher has been told that they can no longer or should not any longer be treating these people this way, that they can turn right around the next year and get more workers from Peru. How does that happen that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing? I guess that's where I'm at. That I do not understand how this continued to go on, frankly. And then Peru, as it turns out, and maybe Chile had done this earlier, they began investigating and they began to educate the folks in Peru. You don't want to go there. And maybe that's why now they're looking at Nepal, for pity's sake. This is, we're just going to do this all over the globe.
So I'll do my best to answer, although I don't have an answer. It's a very big question. And we don't really work with the government very much at all, but I know that DOL has pretty limited resources, and although they have the ability, technically speaking, to debar H2A employers who have violated the law in egregious ways, it's a pretty high bar before they actually do it. And it takes years of investigation. It's incredibly frustrating, and we've even seen bad actors close their business, reopen with a different name, and carry on. And then the DOL has to start all over again trying to debar that new business, which is absurd, right? So I don't know. It's ridiculous, and it's pretty frustrating.
Pues yo he trabajado mucho aquí en Palisade, en las huertas, y sí, lo que he mirado es falta de baños. Yo a veces tengo que limpiarme hasta con billetes porque pues no llevan para los baños, ¿me entienden? Y por favor, pues más atención pues.
So I have worked here in Palisade in the orchards, and what I have seen is the lack of restrooms, and myself, I actually have to wipe myself with dollar bills So I would like some attention on that. I would like to see if there's something we could do about that.
I'd like to actually answer that question, if I may. And if I'm hearing it right, it was regards to the disconnect of the H-2A visa program and the Department of Labor employment. And I think, and this is definitely just, kind of what I've been seeing, what I've been noticing, but it's also culture. And it's something that you will never understand unless you were at one point an H-2A worker. And to know that you were leaving your home, you went to a totally different country with their own values, with their own culture, with their own laws and regulation. And when you get there, there's no one right there telling you, oh, this is your right, this is what you have rights to, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. You're just put there, and you go to work. So of course, they're not gonna be able to reach out when things go wrong. And who are they going to reach out to if they've never been there? Who do they to reach out there? I got an unknown call from an unknown number, and by some miracle they called, and I was able to work with them. But they didn't know that, right? They were just trying to find anyone who could help them. And the other part of that is that the H-2A program is built for them to earn income, right? To send it back to their families. And of course, they don't want to do anything to tarnish that contract between themselves and the employer, because they're afraid of the repercussions. They're afraid that if I say something like they're not giving me water, or there's not sufficient or adequate shade, or they're way late on my wage payment by 3 weeks, I don't want to be bad in your eyes. I don't want to be known as the person who complains and gets all these people investigated into them. And they don't want to be that person, because they want to come back, because they know they just established a connection between themselves, the employer. They want to come back. They want to have that route to be able to come back, the opportunity to come back. And of course, they're not going to want to tarnish that. And so, there's laws in place in Colorado. Like I said, if you work in Colorado, you need to get paid in Colorado, regardless of your status or whatever. And there's laws like rights of the workers being able to meet with service providers, regardless if they're being housed at a certain property, regardless if there's, that type of deal. They have the right to be met with a service provider. But that's in the law, right? That's not in the culture. You can say all these things about it, and you can say that this is the law, this is your right. But at the end of the day, if there's not that trust between, not only trust, but the culture in general, I don't feel comfortable going against my employer, even though I know he's committing all these violations, because I'll just, I'll take the heat, and I'll come back next year, and I'll make money again. I think is the bigger question in all this. Is that really worth it? Is that really working? Is the H-2A program really sufficient enough for that? There's definitely loopholes in it. It's not a perfect program. And I guess it's both the program itself and the culture surrounding it.
Before we finish tonight, I'd like to acknowledge that we invited the Director of Regional Outreach and Strategy for the office of U.S. Senator Michael Bennet. And she is Ms. Alisa Logan. She wants to apologize for not being able to be here with us tonight. And in the afternoon, I was with her on the phone because I would like to offer the opportunity for the Senator's office to give us a message, comments, or statement so that we could read it to you tonight, but there is no statement to make. But Ms. Logan expressed that as a politician, Senator Bennett has a particular perspective on this topic. Those are the words she used, particular perspective. So we don't have anything else to add from that side. But we want you to know that we try to have this other perspective, because as some of your questions were heading towards that side, how this can happen and what we can do and all that, it's more like something that we still need to figure out. So I want to thank one more each of our guests for coming tonight, for staying with us for so long, for sharing their thoughts, their ideas, their experiences, and also to you all for being here, for staying like 2 hours with that and be so interested in this topic. It seems that there is a lot to discuss and to work together, but the first thing is to be well informed and see all the perspectives from all sides and see how we can work together. Thank you so much for a great event.